Surah An-Nisa opens with a reminder that feels both intimate and universal. It does not address a nation, a tribe, or a particular community, but humanity as a whole. It calls mankind to consciousness, urging awareness of a shared origin, a single soul from which all men and women were created. This opening establishes the moral foundation of the chapter. Human dignity is not derived from power, wealth, or lineage, but from a common creation and a shared accountability before God. In a world structured by hierarchy and inequality, this opening declaration quietly dismantles inherited privilege and asserts moral equality as the starting point of social life. From this foundation, the surah moves directly into responsibility. Faith, in this context, is not confined to belief or ritual. It is expressed through how the vulnerable are treated. Orphans are placed at the moral center of society. Their wealth is not to be consumed, exchanged, delayed, or mismanaged. It is to be protected until they are mature enough to manage it themselves. Those who violate this trust are not merely committing a social wrong, they are warned of severe spiritual consequences. The language is uncompromising because exploitation of the powerless corrodes the moral fabric of society. Here, care for orphans is not charity, it is justice. Marriage and family life are then addressed, not romantically, but ethically. Relationships are regulated to prevent harm, injustice, and abuse. Polygyny, often misunderstood when read in isolation, is presented as a conditional allowance tied directly to justice and responsibility, emerging from a social context where widows and orphans required protection. The surah makes clear that fairness is not optional, and if justice cannot be maintained, restraint is commanded. Marriage is framed as a trust, not an entitlement, and women are affirmed as legal individuals with rights over property, consent, and dignity. Women's status within society is repeatedly reinforced. They are entitled to inheritance, a right unheard of in many societies at the time of revelation. They are not to be inherited, coerced, or mistreated. Kindness is not presented as a courtesy, but as a moral obligation. Even in moments of marital discord, reconciliation is prioritized over domination. Authority within the family is paired with responsibility and provision, not control or violence. The surah does not idealize family life. It regulates it, acknowledging human conflict while insisting on ethical limits. Inheritance laws are outlined with precision. The surah does not leave wealth distribution to custom or personal discretion. Fixed shares are established to prevent manipulation, resentment, and injustice. These laws acknowledge human emotion while restraining it, recognizing that grief and greed often coexist. By formalizing inheritance, the surah protects women, children, and distant relatives from exclusion and ensures continuity of care across generations. Wealth, in this vision, is not an extension of ego, but a trust that outlives the individual. Economic ethics extend beyond inheritance. The surah condemns the unlawful consumption of wealth, whether through fraud, coercion, or exploitation. Transactions must be consensual and transparent. Taking life unjustly, whether physically or economically, is equated with moral destruction. These teachings recognize that violence is not always visible. It can occur through systems, contracts, and silence. By addressing economic wrongdoing alongside physical harm, the surah broadens the definition of injustice. Justice itself is elevated as a sacred duty. Believers are commanded to stand firmly for justice, even when it conflicts with personal interest, family loyalty, or self-preservation. Truth is not to be bent for convenience. This command removes moral neutrality. Silence in the face of injustice becomes complicity. Justice is not emotional, tribal, or selective. It is principled, disciplined, and anchored in accountability to God rather than society. Governance and authority are also addressed. Obedience is framed not as blind submission, but as structured responsibility. Authority is to be obeyed so long as it aligns with divine guidance and justice. When disputes arise, they are to be referred back to ethical principles rather than force or manipulation. This establishes a framework where power is restrained by morality and legitimacy is tied to justice, not dominance. The surah then turns its attention to hypocrisy, portraying it as one of the gravest internal threats to a moral community. Hypocrisy is not merely disbelief, it is deception wrapped in the language of faith. Those who outwardly claim belief while undermining justice and truth from within are described as occupying the lowest moral position. This condemnation highlights the importance of sincerity. Faith, in this vision, is not performative. It must transform conduct, or it becomes hollow. Accountability is a recurring theme. No group is granted moral immunity. Salvation is not inherited, claimed, or assumed. Each individual is responsible for their actions. Good is rewarded, evil is answered for, and excuses rooted in identity or history are dismissed. This dismantles collective arrogance and centers personal moral responsibility. It also offers reassurance. Righteousness is accessible to all, regardless of background. The sanctity of human life is reaffirmed with gravity. Unlawful killing is condemned unequivocally, with clear consequences outlined. Even accidental harm carries responsibility, emphasizing the seriousness with which life is regarded. Life is not owned by individuals or states. It is entrusted by God. This principle underpins the Surah's broader ethical system, where harm is never trivial and accountability is unavoidable. Yet despite its firm moral boundaries, Surah An-Nisa is not devoid of mercy. Repentance is repeatedly mentioned as a door that remains open. Those who err are not condemned without recourse. Sincere repentance, followed by reform, is met with forgiveness. This balance between justice and mercy prevents despair and moral rigidity. It acknowledges human fallibility while insisting on responsibility. Throughout the surah, belief is inseparable from conduct. Ritual without ethics is insufficient. Faith is measured by how power is exercised, how wealth is distributed, how families are treated, and how justice is upheld. Surah An-Nisa ultimately presents a vision of society where dignity is protected, power is restrained, and justice is sacred. It speaks to homes, courts, marketplaces, and battlefields, insisting that divine guidance governs all aspects of life. It confronts social realities without romanticism and offers regulation instead of idealism. Its teachings challenge both oppression and moral complacency, in addressing the most vulnerable, the most powerful, and everyone in between. It constructs a framework where faith is not confined to belief, but embodied in justice, responsibility, and compassion. This chapter does not promise a flawless society. It recognizes conflict, temptation, and failure, but it insists that morality must guide law, that mercy must accompany justice, and that accountability belongs to every soul. In doing so, Surah An-Nisa remains not only a legal text, but a timeless moral document, calling humanity to recognize its shared origin and shared responsibility, and to build a society where no one is forgotten and no injustice is ignored.